Hello and welcome back. In this video, we will be learning how to use the function keys inside AutoCAD. Now, what are function keys? Now, if I tell you about F8, one of the key which is something which you are already using in the software, that is to create or that is to activate ortho to create straight lines. So that is one of the function keys. Likewise, we have total 12 function keys from F1 to F12, and every function key has a different behavior, we can say, or different inputs, we can say. We are not going to go into detail of using each and every function key, but I am going to teach you the one which are very important for us to understand. Okay, now we'll be starting with the first one, that is F1. Now if I press F1, so that is like any other software, it is for the help file. So if I press F1, it will go or take me to the help file where I can learn, different part of AutoCAD. If I have some doubts, I can get it clear. If I want to, get some help related to certain topics from Autodesk, I can go and press F1 and I can go to those areas. Now the problem here is this will only work if you are using a licensed version of AutoCAD. If you are using an unlicensed version of AutoCAD, pressing F1 will ask you to connect it to internet, and that will inform Autodesk that you are using an unlicensed version, which might create some problem at the end. So it's recommended if you're using a licensed version of AutoCAD, press F1. Otherwise, don't press F1 if you are connected to internet. Second key is F2. Now, if I press F2, you can see something is happening on the screen. Technically, what is happening here is I am getting this command prompt window, or we can say the text window, expanded, and I can see all the history which has been performed at the right from the very beginning of AutoCAD. So, for example, if I press L enter line, and if I create some lines with any given inputs, and if I press F2, I can see those part as well. Okay, line command and what exactly happened with those line command. So this is something like a history, but it is temporary. So it will automatically get removed once you close the file and reopen. Okay, so if you close this file, even after saving, it will get removed. So it is just a temporary history. Okay, so by pressing F2, you are able to expand the text window. It will help you to have a look at any previous value which you are like not remembering or you want to check. So in those cases, F2 will be helpful. Now coming to the very important one, that is F3. Now F3 is for O snap. Okay, I'll just write it down. O snap. Now O snap means object snap. Okay, so this is a very important thing. F3 will help you to turn it on and turn it off. Okay, for example, I have a line here. Now we know that line has a midpoint, line has two endpoints. Okay, so if I press C enter circle, I can see that here the software is highlighting me the endpoints. Okay, I'll just make it a little bigger so that you can understand this part in a better way. So for crosshair size is fine. Okay, I'll just zoom to the screen. That will be much better because otherwise it will take most of my display space because the size is already appropriate. So what I'll do, I'll press C enter. Okay, I'll zoom in. Now you can see it is showing me the endpoint, the midpoint, the endpoint. Okay, if you remember the first basic setup video, we went to drafting setting, DS enter, and in that we went to object snap and selected all. Now why we did that? Because we wanted to see endpoint, midpoint, center point, geometry center, nodes, quadrants. So these are different symbols using which software inform us what is that particular point is. For example, if I turn off object snap, means if I press F3, so now you can see object snap is off, means by default it was on. Okay, so now if I press circle, I cannot see the endpoint, the midpoint, the center point, etc. Okay, so it is something which is very good or very useful. So it should be always active. Okay, the reason why I'm explaining you is because it should be always active. Okay, now for example, let's say I'll give you one condition which will be very helpful in future. Let's say I have a circle here and I have a circle here. What I want to do is I want to create a line tangential to both the circles. Okay, I want to create a line tangential to both the circles. Means in this case, I should know exactly from where the line will start. I should know exactly where the line will finish so that it will be tangent to both the circles. Okay, and that is something which is impossible to guess on a geometry like this. So what I'll do, I'll go to drafting settings. Drafting settings, the command is DS enter. Okay, so I'll go to drafting settings. Here I'll go to object snap. I will deactivate all. or I'll say I'll clear all and only activate the one which I'm looking for. Okay, so you can even filter out. So if you don't want to see midpoint, you can deactivate midpoint. If you don't want to see endpoint, you can deactivate endpoint. As of now, I don't want to see anything other than tangent. So I have deactivated everything other than tangent. Okay, so if I click OK, and now if I start a line command by pressing L enter, now if I hover the mouse over my circle, you can see the tangent symbol is the only symbol which is showing up. Okay, there is no other symbol which is showing on the screen. So that means if I try to create a line, you can see the line is becoming tangential to the circle automatically, not by doing anything. Okay, similarly, if I go over the other circle, I can click and my line is properly connected tangentially from one circle to another. Okay, again, I'll activate line. Okay, this is how I can achieve that. Okay, so this is a very good option. This is very important. And again, after completing this, make sure you go back to drafting setting and select everything. Otherwise, you will still miss endpoint, midpoint, etc. So you don't have to worry about missing those points. So if you need these points, then only activate or deactivate any of these points for advanced drawing creations. We are going to face some advanced drawings. In that case, this will be very helpful. So this is known as object snap. Okay, there are a few more things about object snap which I'll share with you with a tips and tricks video. Okay, not as of now. Now, next thing is F4. We are not going to see F4, F5 and F6 for now. Okay, we'll keep this for the later part of the video. Okay, F4, F5 and F6. We'll keep it for later. Next is F7. Now F7 will show you grids. Okay, F7 will show you grids. So grids is like a graph paper which you used to have in your school, in your colleges. Okay, so it is something like that. It's like a graph paper kind of thing. Okay, but it is not really useful because if I start to create a line and if I want to actually click on the area where the grids are meeting, I cannot actually do that. Like there is nothing I can do to make my mouse stop just by displaying the grid. Okay, so this is just for display. This is just for display purpose. The very important thing here is, see, we already know F8 ortho. I'll keep the grid on and I'll press F9. F9 will turn on the snap. Okay, F9 will turn on the snap. Now my snap is on as well as grid is on. So you can notice these two symbols are active. Okay, these two symbols over here are active and they are both in the same group. You can see they are both next to each other. It is recommended that wherever you are using grid, you should use snap, or whenever you are using snap, you should use grid. Otherwise, there is no use of individually each one of them. Okay, so now if I press line, L enter, now you can see my mouse is moving onto the grid points. Okay, and if I want to create some diagram like this, for example, I'm creating a line. So without measurements, okay, I can create some lines like this. Okay, I can start a line from here, and this is all happening because I'm working with grids. Okay, this is all happening because I'm working with grids. So it is making my process of creating a drawing a lot easier. So you can notice for creating some designs, grid will be really helpful. Okay, now similarly, if you try to make the same design by yourself by giving angles, by giving length, it would be little difficult. Okay, so grid are good for some use case, some basic type of designs. I would say if you are into grill design particularly, grid is something which you can go ahead with. Now, I also have settings where I can control the distance of the grid. For example, right now it is 10 by 10. So if I go to drafting setting, the same command, I can go to snap and grid and I can change the spacing. For example, this is the spacing at which the mouse is stopping. So I can change the spacing to 20 by 20. Now what will happen? The grid is showing at 10 by 10, but my mouse will stop at 20 by 20. Okay, mouse is stopping at every 20 mm. Okay, so again, I'll go for drafting setting. I'll make it 10 by 10 again. And this is my grid. So if I want to make everything 5, I can just simply make this 5. Okay, all the values 5. So now my grids are smaller and even my snapping distance is smaller. So you can alter or you can change the grid size as and when you want to. Okay, so this will help you to make your diagram in a much faster and a much easier way. Okay, to turn it off, again, we can press F7 to turn off the grid and F9 to turn off the snap. Now, if you don't remember the shortcuts, you can go to drafting setting. You can also see over here, snap is for F9, grid is for F7, and you can turn it on and off from here as well. Okay, now the next thing, we are not going to look over F10 for now because I have some better things to show. because F10 is a very older input. Okay, so we are not going to view that for now. We will directly jump for the next one, that is F11. Okay, again, that is very, very important. Now, let's say I have a circle here and I have a circle here. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to create a circle exactly here where these two circles center points are going to meet. So one option is I can make a line by keeping ortho on like this, then I'll press escape. Then again I can make a line by keeping ortho on like this. Wherever these two lines are intersecting, I'll make a circle there. But this is a time consuming process. So what I'll do, I'll go directly into circle. Okay, I'll highlight the first center point and move my mouse down. You can see I'm getting a temporary tracking line. Okay, I'll do the same thing to the other center point and move the mouse left. So I have not clicked on the center point. I've just highlighted them. And when I meet the center points here, you can see it is giving me a proper highlighting where these two center points are going to meet. And then I can make a circle there. So I can do the same thing just by using the tracking function. And that tracking function can be activated or deactivated by pressing F11. So now my tracking is off. So if the tracking is off, I can no longer see the tracking lines. Okay, if my tracking is on, again, I can see the tracking lines just by simply hovering the mouse over the points I want to see the tracking lines for. Now, there is one very important thing about tracking lines which I want to share right now. Okay, this is something which is quite advanced. Normally, I don't share with the basic video, but this is very important. So, let's say I have a circle here. Okay, and if you remember the practice diagrams which we have done in the previous videos, there was one diagram here in which you have to create two circles with a distance of 70. And if you remember, we created a line over here, right, at the distance of 70. So what I'll do, I'll make a circle first of all of diameter 52. So this is the very basic part. The first step is very basic. Now I want to create a second circle of radius 20. But the distance between the first circle and the second circle is 70. So I'll go for circle. Technically, I don't know the distance. So what I can do, I can highlight my point, hover the mouse, and I can see, you can see the values there. Okay, next to the center point. Okay, so we can see 66, 77, 78, 76, etc. Now it will be difficult for us to go exactly over 70. So how to do that? Like how to get this distance to go exactly over 70? First thing, I'm in circle command. Second thing, it is asking me to specify the center point, which I know that the center point is from this point 70 mm on the right side. So here I'm going to type 70. Okay, here I'm going to type 70 and I'm not pressing enter. Okay, I'm not pressing enter. I'm just typing 70. Now what I'll do, I'll press enter after I get this highlighting. So now I'm getting this highlighting. Now we need to make sure about two things. It is asking for the center point. Okay, I have the value written there 70 and I'm getting the highlighting as well. Now if I press enter, you can see now the circle is distance from the first circle at 70 mm. Now I can make my object. For example, this circle of radius 20. Okay, let's say we'll try this once again. I'll go for circle, C enter, center point. I want this time the center point at the distance of 120. So I'll type 120, but I'll not press enter. Okay, then I'll highlight this, go let's say on this side by 120. So I'll just highlight and keep my mouse over the tracking line in the bottom side and I'll press enter. So now my circle is at 120 mm. Okay, so you will have to make various diagrams where you need to make the object a little away from one another, or little, you know, towards one another. In those cases, this tracking will be really helpful. Okay, so this is F11 and the final one is F12. So if I press F12, then what is going to happen? If I press L enter line, you can see the inputs are coming next to the mouse. Okay, so it is giving me everything next to the mouse. So this is called F11 or F12. This is for dynamic input. F12 is for dynamic input. I'll just activate all the options. Okay, and then show you that particular option. See. So it is good for new user, but because you're learning AutoCAD in a proper way, I don't recommend you using F12 because that will not help you. That will actually start distracting you as and when you create more important diagrams. Okay, so F12 is for the inputs next to mouse. That is called dynamic input. Okay, so everything what is happening in the command window, same thing it is going to ask here. So that is F12. Okay, so I hope you got a proper clear idea about how the function keys are going to work and what function keys will help you for doing which type of diagrams. Now, I'm not going to give you any additional practice diagram. If you want to create some drawings, then what you can do is you can go over the first previous practice diagrams which we have completed and try to use function keys to get this diagram right. Okay, try to use the function keys. Like for example, ortho we are already using. We can try using tracking, for example, over here. Okay, other options likewise you can use your brain to apply certain options and then you decide like how exactly tracking is going to be used. And do a very general practice of tracking. Okay, do a very general practice of tracking and meet you soon in the next video.